It was an ordinary morning in the bustling city of San Francisco when Nia Williams found herself in a situation she never thought possible. Walking down the street toward her job at the local law firm, she was accosted by two police officers who had been stationed on the corner. Their black and white patrol car was parked haphazardly, with one officer leaning against the vehicle, his arms crossed in an air of disinterest. "Excuse me, ma'am," one of them, Officer Jackson, called out. His tone was anything but friendly. "We need to ask you some questions." Nia, tall, dark-skinned, and impeccably put together, gave him a nod. "What's this about?" she asked, her voice calm, yet guarded. She wasn't naive enough to ignore the tension in the air. "We're investigating a robbery, ma'am. You match the description of a suspect we're looking for." Nia's eyebrows furrowed in confusion. A robbery? She had been working tirelessly for weeks, preparing a case for a high-profile client. There was no way she could be involved in anything illegal. "I think there's been some mistake," she said, her voice steady. "I haven't committed any crime." "Ma'am, please come with us," Officer Jackson demanded, his voice now stern. Nia's heart raced. She knew her rights, but there was something about the officer's demeanor that made her feel like she had no choice. Without another word, she was shoved into the back of the police car. The other officer, a younger man named Officer Martinez, sat beside her, glaring. It wasn't long before Nia realized the true magnitude of the situation. The robbery in question wasn't just any robbery. According to the officers, the suspect had not only stolen a large sum of money but had also killed a security guard in the process. The police had no real evidence connecting her to the crime, except for a blurry surveillance video showing a woman with similar features. It didn't help that she was wearing a coat similar to the one described in the report. The arrest was absurd. Nia had never been involved in anything criminal, let alone murder. But as she sat in the interrogation room, she had a sinking feeling that this wasn't about her at all. There was something more insidious at play. Back at the station, the officers were working hard to build a case against Nia. They began fabricating evidence, clothing found in her apartment that matched the descriptions from the crime scene, a gun that was said to have been used in the shooting found near her building, and a briefcase containing a stack of cash that had no apparent origin. Everything was planted to make Nia seem guilty. Her public defender, an overworked lawyer named Charles Dixon, was skeptical of the case, but even he couldn't help but feel that the circumstantial evidence stacked against Nia was damning. He argued that there was no physical evidence tying her to the crime, but the fact remained, it was her word against theirs. Nia felt the walls closing in around her. She had no family in the city, no immediate support system, and all she could do was trust her own instincts. But she knew something else. She wasn't just a random woman in a bad situation. She had a secret. A secret so powerful that if the wrong people knew about it, it could destroy her life. Nia Williams wasn't just an attorney, she was a covert operative for the CIA. Her role in the agency was one she had kept hidden for years, her work classified to the highest levels. She had been embedded in San Francisco for a covert mission involving national security, a mission that had brought her into contact with powerful criminal networks. But now, she found herself caught in a trap, wrongfully accused, framed for a crime she didn't commit. The irony was that she had spent years uncovering corruption and betrayal, and now, she was the one being set up. As the days passed in jail, Nia's thoughts raced. She knew that her CIA superiors would eventually find out what was happening, but the agency had a long history of avoiding direct involvement in such matters unless absolutely necessary. Still, Nia had to rely on her training. She was resourceful, smart, and knew how to work the system from within. One evening, as she sat in the prison yard, lost in her thoughts, she noticed a man sitting on the opposite side of the yard. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried himself with the kind of confidence that immediately drew attention. His sharp, calculating eyes scanned the yard, stopping just briefly to meet hers. There was something familiar about him. Nia felt a twinge of recognition but couldn't place it. The man, seeing the flicker of recognition in her eyes, stood up and walked toward her. "We need to talk," he said under his breath, his voice low and serious. She stood and followed him to a quieter part of the yard. "Who are you?" she demanded. "I'm with the agency," the man said. "You've been set up, Nia." "We know." Nia's breath caught in her throat. "You're from the CIA?" she asked incredulously. "I don't recognize you." The man nodded, his expression unreadable. "I'm an agent. We've been tracking the operation that's been targeting you." Nia's heart raced. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Who would want to frame me?" "The truth is, Nia," the agent said, his voice tight, "the people who set you up are closer than you think. The same people you've been investigating for months, agents within the agency itself." With the help of the mysterious agent, Nia learned that her case wasn't just a random act of framing. It was part of a deeper conspiracy involving rogue elements within the CIA, agents who had been using their positions to smuggle arms and launder money through criminal organizations. The robbery she was accused of was a staged operation, designed to remove her from the field and stop her from exposing the conspiracy. Nia couldn't believe it. Her own colleagues, the very people she had worked with, were the ones responsible for her downfall. But now, with the agent's help, she had a chance to fight back. They began gathering evidence, covertly reaching out to Nia's trusted contacts within the agency who had stayed loyal. They needed proof to clear her name, and they needed it fast. The clock was ticking. The trial of Nia Williams began amidst a storm of media attention. The charges against her were severe, and the evidence, though fabricated, was strong. Her public defender was doing his best, but Nia knew the stakes were much higher than a mere courtroom battle. This was a fight for her life. As the days passed, Nia's CIA allies worked tirelessly behind the scenes to uncover the truth. It wasn't long before a key piece of evidence came to light, surveillance footage of a meeting between the corrupt agents involved in framing her, caught by a hacker working with the agency. The video was enough to shake the entire case to its core. The defense team presented the footage in court, and the prosecution had no choice but to acknowledge the existence of the rogue CIA operatives involved in the plot. The courtroom was in chaos as the truth began to unravel. Nia watched as her accusers, those same officers who had arrested her, stared in shock and disbelief. The video clearly showed them meeting with one of the rogue agents, discussing the plan to frame her for the robbery. It was all falling apart. In the end, the case against Nia Williams was thrown out. The charges were dropped, and the officers involved in the framing were arrested for their roles in the conspiracy. But the victory came at a great cost. Nia's life would never be the same. The CIA had erased all traces of her involvement in their operations, but the scar of betrayal would linger forever. She had been framed by people she had trusted, by the very organization she had worked for. The fact that she was still standing was a testament to her strength, but the damage to her heart and soul was irreparable. Nia Williams walked out of the courtroom that day not as a victim, but as a survivor. Her future, though uncertain, was her own once again. But as she walked into the unknown, she knew one thing for certain: in a world full of secrets, the truth was a weapon, and it was one she would always carry with her.